In today's show, we visit housewife of Auckland and founder of the New Zealand Cat Foundation, Anne Batley Burton, to see how she's helping the helpless. Medical research student Jack Moran joins us to discuss how he's helping the team at Retina New Zealand learn more about retinopathy. The Smarter Mortgage lady Rachel Thompson is back with another quick tip on how to get your mortgage approved. And finally, we hear from Daryl Smith, master landscaper from Landsmiths, on how to get rid of mozzies from your backyard.
Goose Creek in Kumeu, West Auckland is the home of the New Zealand Cat Foundation, a charity organisation funded by donations dedicated to homing cats that would normally have nowhere else to go and no other options. There are over 200 pussies at Goose Creek, and they're all overseen by the Queen of Pussy Palace, Anne Batley Burton.
I started feeding stray cats as a very young girl. This was mainly initiated by my father, who always did the desexing of all the cats around the factories, which was just fantastic. This is in Newland, so you can imagine that the wood place next door, our own printing factory, there are electroplaters, all sorts of things in that industrial area, all these stray cats around the place. So Dad sort of started doing that when I was maybe 10 years old, so I was sort of brought up with it really. And it wasn't until I was about, 20-something that I actually had the opportunity of having my own home and then being able to get a little stray cat that was the last one of all the stray pussies we'd been feeding at the factory, Batley Printing Company. That was Betty Boop. And Betty Boop at the time was probably about 15 years old on her last legs. Well, talk about a transition from the streets of Newland to the Pines Apartments. Wow, this little pussy was a little princess. Anyway, after that, I got involved with feeding the cats at the Rose Gardens. Now, that's a group of stray cats that had been being looked after by an elderly lady for many years, but sadly she hadn't been doing any desexing. So the numbers were growing and growing, but they're actually quite healthy cats. And then another woman, Caroline Ravlett, she actually got involved and wanted to organise a proper volunteers group. And I became one of them. And of course, we were doing a huge amount of desexing. So these cats, which numbered about 200 cats at the time, the numbers were brought down through every week, trapping these cats, desexing, stopping the breeding until it became, a very manageable level. Now that was about 20 years ago that I actually got involved in all of that. As the years went by, I started worrying about some of the really old stray cats that were very friendly, that all cluster around when we'd be feeding and so on. And I started worrying about them, particularly in the winter time when it was cold and miserable. And while we were feeding them and sort of trying our best to look after their veterinary needs, they really needed extra care. Then when my mother passed away, which was about 10 years ago now, I inherited some money from her. And I thought, right, I'm going to buy this place and I'm going to start the Pussy Palace. So the Pussy Palace started and was going to be for a maximum of 25 stray pussies. Hence the Pussy Palace for pensioners. It's at the front of the sanctuary. Well, news spread, and of course, one pussy followed another. And over the years, we have had hundreds of cats come through. And of course, it's now a proper charity. It's a registered charity for which we have donee status. And it's the New Zealand Cat Foundation. .org.nz if anyone would like to volunteer or donate. So it's sort of grown as we needed to really. We ended up taking on about 28 cats that were going to be killed, basically pest control and so on, from an area it was used to be the freezing works. This is probably about 7 years ago, so we ended up putting on another section. Then somebody else came to us with a big sob straw and we had to put on another section. And so it grew really organically just as the need arose. Hence, it's probably not the most beautiful, perfectly built place in town. It's a bit of, a bit rough and ready, but it does the job and the cats just love it. And as you can see, looking around the sanctuary, a lot of hard work goes into it from volunteers. We need a lot of volunteers to keep this place going. We've got well over 200 cats here now. Every week we've got probably, 30, 40, 50 people calling us wanting assistance with stray cats in their area, or not even necessarily a stray cat. We're now taking on cats, say somebody's died, no one's going to take care of their cats. The children can't take them or won't take them. Somebody goes into a retirement village, an old folks home, maybe they're in a dementia unit. We actually sadly get a lot of that. Whilst they might be able to take the cat to the retirement village, once they move to the next stage, unfortunately the cats aren't allowed. And often they're old cats. And this is particularly difficult because it's hard to rehome old cats. So it's not only the financial thing, but sometimes people aren't prepared to take them on because they think, oh, I'm going to end up suffering a loss myself, in a year or 2 years or whatever, and they just don't really want to go through all of that themselves. So we're taking on cats from all walks of life and from all types of situations. Now, a lot of people think, oh, we've got a stray cat problem and so on in New Zealand. We actually don't have a cat problem at all. We have a people problem because people are not being responsible and desexing their cats. There's all sorts of reasons for that. Sometimes it's people say, well, they can't afford it. Other times it's a cultural thing and they actually don't agree with desexing. There's quite a lot of that in this country. We get situations where they think, oh, wouldn't it be nice for the children to have some kittens to play with? And they forget that then this is going to be an ongoing problem which they actually can't afford or manage. So there's lots of reasons for this, and it makes me very angry and upset when we have conservationists in particular who want to run around here saying, oh, we've got to get rid of all these cats, they're a pest. Well, actually, we need to sort the people out, and we need to get funding, not only from the general community, who we're actually helping with the work that we do, with the desexing and so on, and taking in all these unwanted cats. But we need assistance from the government, and we need assistance from the councils. And this is very important because whilst this is a charity, I'm basically the charity, and I'm pouring just about everything that I earn into the cats. And thank God I've got a husband. He's got a good job because at least he can look after me and him. But seriously, we need help, and we need it quickly, because if we're going to continue doing the work we do, which is basically a fantastic community service, we need help from people in the community.
Welcome to Caesar's Palace. So Caesar came to us about 2 years ago, and he's a cat that doesn't really get on with other cats, but we managed to get him adopted out to a lifestyle block, but the adoption failed because he just terrorised the neighbourhood basically. And so he came back to us, and it was obvious that he needed to be in an enclosure of his own. So we made a plan to create this big enclosure for him where he can spend the rest of his life, and he's at the front of the sanctuary so people can see him and interact with him, and he's just a changed cat. He's so happy, and he just walks around and sees everybody and is just living his best life.
I love being a volunteer at the New Zealand Cat Foundation because there are so many cats here that are very friendly, others that are not so friendly, but there's this one cat called Boots that always comes and sees me every day. It's very lovely here. The people here are amazing. They're very helpful. If you get stuck, you can always just ask. Very, very lovely here. Anyone can volunteer here. It's a great space. I find there are some cats here that have some neurological problems or only have one eye, and I feel quite sad for them, but then I also feel happy that I can keep an eye on them every single day that I come here and give them food and make sure they're healthy.
Well, once upon a time, I was living on a place called Karitahi Beach, and Anne thought, well, I've got a better idea, and she got me here to the New Zealand Cat Foundation and said, here's your job to look after the cats. And I can't believe how good, how much a wonderful journey that it's been for me to learn about them, because they're sentient beings just like humans. And fascinatingly enough, I've been mixed with animals, I've farmed for probably about 30 years, but I've never actually had much to do with cats. I used to prefer birds. But after being with cats and you're seeing their different personalities and just some of the things they do, like e.g. one cat will actually bond with another cat. It's one of the most amazing things you can see in your life. I also see special needs people come here as well, and they change, they're transformed when they see the cats. And when the cats purr, I've got to honestly ask myself, what other animal purrs? And it's all about frequencies. And that frequency, for some reason, makes everybody feel at ease. And hopefully I'll be here for many more years.
Soaking in any hot water can change people's lives, you know, from a better sleep to recovery from sport to just general relaxation. You know, the day-to-day lives that we live are so busy and frantic that, you know, sitting in a hot tub is often the only time people get to just stop and relax. Hi, I'm Charles from Colonial Hot Tubs. We build and install cedar wooden hot tubs. We're the only ones still building hot tubs the traditional coopering way. They're way more stable and very watertight. We have two solutions. We build beautiful bespoke hot tubs. Whatever you want it to look like, we'll build it like that. And we also do a plug and play version which we can just build in the factory and drop into place. Really simple. So our big thing is we listen to the customers. We listen to what they want, how they want to do things, and we design the pool around what they tell us. So there's different ways to heat your pool and sanitize your pool, and it's all about getting the right solution for the customer. My brother bought the company in the late 80s, then unfortunately passed away in 2011, and I came back with my family from overseas to run the company, and it's been a lot of hard work and we've grown it to what it is today. We're a boutique company. We design and build to order. We don't have a production line of tubs coming off, and I personally work with every tub that goes out the door. A lot of our customers are time poor. They don't want to have to deal with different contractors. We can do everything from the electrician to the landscaper, the one-stop shop. For us, it's not about what's just going to do the job, it's what's going to do the job really well. I don't want to put a screw or a bracket on something that's only going to last a couple of years, it's going to last a lifetime. So all the information's on the website. You can send us an email or give us a call. We'd love to hear from you.
Kia ora, I'm Monique Bradley, and today I'm speaking with researcher and coming into his 5th year medical research student, Jack Moran, about some incredible research he's been conducting this year on retinopathy. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks.
Welcome to the studio. So before we jump into today's conversation, I want to find out a little bit about you. So I and our viewers both have context around what you've been researching. So tell me about your educational journey, what you've been studying, and where you're at in your stage of education.
Cool, yeah. So I'm heading to my 5th year of medicine right now, and I've been working with research in the eye for about a year now. Yeah, and that's sort of been my background for some time now, yeah.
So what got you interested in working specifically with eyes?
With the eyes? Well, I guess within the field of medicine, when you ask someone what's their biggest fear, most people would say losing their sight. And I guess within medicine, being able to restore sight is one of the easiest things to do. It only takes 20 minutes, a simple operation, and yeah, you can restore sight with things like cataract, for example. So yeah, I just thought that's pretty cool, and that's sort of what inspired me to go down pursuing that.
Wow, that's incredible. So you're currently studying and you're doing research projects as well. So where does this take you in your profession? What are the next steps for you?
Yeah, well, for me, I hope to, first of all, finish medicine, graduate, hopefully, and continue doing research just on the side, part-time, as I work my way up through the ranks. But yeah, that's the plan for now. I guess research is something that I quite enjoy as well. It's nice just to have on the side as well.
Yes, but also that research is so valuable, and giving people with visual impairment potentially a little bit of hope for the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think that research is the future. If we didn't have research, we wouldn't be able to sort of figure out new cures for lots of problems that can be cured, in fact. Yeah.
So on that note, diving into your research, we've got a few questions here I thought I would ask you today.
Yeah.
And just like our viewers, I don't have that scientific training that you perhaps have or that understanding. So throughout this chat today, I'm going to ask you lots of questions and probably dive a little bit deeper to understand why you do what you do and how this helps our viewers and the members associated with Retina New Zealand. So first big question. My understanding is that Retina New Zealand have actually funded and supported you in your research this year. So tell me about what your research entailed.
Right. Well, I guess essentially our research revolved around the big problem that diabetic retinopathy is the leading cause of preventable blindness in the world, and particularly in the working age population here in New Zealand. And but current treatments for diabetic retinopathy aren't very effective. They're only about 50% effective, and that's usually after people have sort of full-blown disease and the retinopathy is already pretty bad. But what we wanted to research was to see if there was sort of a inflammatory molecule that we could target that's a little bit higher up in the disease pathway so that we can prevent that from happening in the future. So yeah, that was sort of what our research was about, and Retina New Zealand kindly funded us for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me, what did that research entail? Because my understanding is you actually worked with human donor tissue as well. So can you tell me and our viewers as well, what was that like? What was involved?
Yes, so we received human donor eyes pretty much from the New Zealand National Eye Bank. So people kindly donated their eyes for our research. And what we did was we used those eye cups to investigate whether people with diabetic retinopathy had certain inflammatory molecules that were higher up in the disease pathway, and we wanted to see whether we could actually target those inflammatory molecules and see if we could stop the disease pathway from happening in the future.
Wow. So it was looking for the inflammation or the inflammatory molecule and looking at how potentially in the future that can activate people to get what support and care earlier on, or where is that research going?
Well, what the research currently shows us is the fact that a particular inflammatory molecule, it's called NLRP3, may be involved in early pathogenesis of the disease. It might cause a disease to happen at the earlier stages. And so if we are able to target this particular molecule, NLRP3, we might actually be able to reduce the development of diabetic retinopathy in the future. So that's where the research is heading towards in the future, where we can target this particular molecule.
That would be incredible. So I believe we've got a couple of slides as well that we're going to show. So you can explain to me and our viewers what it looks like, what the information looks like, and what that means for the future of eye care and retinopathy. So let's take a look. So you mentioned NLRP3. So what am I seeing here on the screen?
Right. So NLRP3 is that inflammatory protein I was telling you about. And if we look at the second and third columns, what we can see is that the amount of red is highest in the diabetic retinopathy group. And what that tells us is that NLRP3 plays a role in the development of diabetic retinopathy, but not so much in people that are normal. And so what that tells us, if we are able to target NLRP3 in people with diabetes, we might actually be able to prevent the development of diabetic retinopathy in the future.
So is it likely that by pre-screening, in the pre-screening process, you might be able to detect in the future these markers, and potentially preempt the likelihood of this? How could this be done? Is it a screening process?
Well, there isn't sort of like a particular screening process at the moment. Usually, we identify people with diabetic retinopathy when they have symptoms, and that's a little bit too late down the disease pathway. Or people with poorly controlled diabetes might be screened in their eyes as well at some hospitals. But what we hope is that we can make it a little bit more simpler, where somebody doesn't have to go to the doctors, or they can just get it just get it with a blood test in the community or simple sample, or just seeing their optometrist as well. At the end of the day, what we want to do is prevent diabetic retinopathy from happening in the first place, as opposed to actually helping people who've already got diabetic retinopathy.
Right, so you want to be the fence at the top
something
of the cliff.
more upstream as opposed to
gotcha.
Downstream.
That's great. And I think too, when you're having to treat a condition when it is quite through that progression pathway, it's always a little bit harder and a little bit more complicated. So being able to almost preempt the likelihood of this happening means you're treating that cause rather than the symptoms.
Exactly.
Right?
It's all about likelihood, isn't it? It's all about how likely is somebody to develop diabetic retinopathy in the future based on all these criteria. And you can just use those criteria and say like, okay, we should probably give this person a certain drug that blocks that protein that we talked about.
Yes.
So that they don't develop it in the future.
So this is so positive. So what does this mean for people who have a higher likelihood? So they may have diabetes already, and they may already have a higher likelihood of developing retinopathy. Is there hope?
Well, I would say yes, potentially. Although the research is still pretty new, it's still developing. A lot of these things that we're researching have only been in the workings for about a couple of years. But looking towards the future, and based on what our research tells us, is the fact that if we are able to target this particular inflammatory protein, there might be a chance that we can slow down the progression of diabetic retinopathy in the future. We know that protein plays a particular role in the jump from diabetes just on its own to diabetic retinopathy. So if we can block that somewhere in the middle, we might be able to stop that from happening.
That is fantastic news. That's literally brilliant. Thank you so much. And congratulations on the work that you've done.
Thank you.
I know this is a big part of that journey to providing a lot of hope for people both with diabetes and potentially with retinopathy in the future. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Retina New Zealand has an ongoing commitment to supporting scientific and medical research that leads to better outcomes in the prevention, diagnosis and treatment of retinal disorders. They're here to support you and all Kiwis living with visual impairment. If you need help, reach out, retina.org.nz. Jack, thank you and congratulations.
No worries, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel, the Smarter Mortgage Lady. I'm a financial advisor, and one of the things I love is getting people into their own place to call home. One of the biggest questions I get asked is, how do you choose the best lender for us and our mortgage? I'm not going to lie, the process is pretty involved, but I'm here to make this easy for you to turn your mortgage into a smarter mortgage. The first part of the process is that I submit a loan application to your existing bank. Often this is the path of least resistance, as you already have a relationship and history with them. And I choose to do this as a way to get a fair comparison and to help you look objectively at your options. My job is then to look at other lenders, compare their rates and options, and do a pricing comparison, including both rates and cash contribution on a suggested loan structure. This gives you the tools you need to make an informed decision and still be able to sleep at night. A smarter mortgage saves you time and money. So if you're ready to make your own decision about who you borrow from with the best solution for you, call me and let's do your numbers.
Hey, welcome to my backyard again. I actually live in my garden. It's not that large. I love my outdoor space. Like most Kiwis, I want to be outside, particularly this time of year. But guess what? There can be mozzies. I have a solution. It works really well. It's been a long time since we've been able to get rid of all these mozzies and make the whole thing work, live outside and not getting bitten all the time. So here's my 3 top tips to get rid of mozzies. Tip number 1, do not use fly spray. I've tried it. It stinks, it's horrible, it's no good for you. I used to spray it all around the place and I went, no. Tip number 2, watch out what you plant. I have a subtropical garden and lots of us in Kiwiland love to have that. We've got plants that hold water like bromeliads, There's one over here right behind me. Best way to get rid of that, rinse them all out with fresh water, wash all those mozzie larvae out of it. But actually, there is a better idea. Tip number 3, which is actually the solution, right? It took me a little while, finally found it. Here it is. It's the Mozzie Eater. It's right over here. We run it. It just kills every mozzie in this garden. They don't come to us. They go to that. And that's exactly what you want. My friends don't get bitten. I don't get bitten. This guy sucks them all up. So if you've got a mozzie problem, get in touch. We've got all the solutions. See you next time.
Mosquitoes driving you crazy? Don't just repel them, Pestrol them. The Pestrol range of products comes with over 25 years of tried and tested success when it comes to repelling and controlling mosquito populations. Using natural ingredients and innovative technology, Pestrol has the perfect solution for indoor living areas, the bedroom, and targeted solutions for your outdoor areas as well.
By using a unit like this in your backyard, it attracts the mozzies away from you without any smell or mess. It's safe around the kids and it's safe around the animals. It's great.
So order yours now and enjoy a pest-free summer with Pestrol.
Lifestyle focused, leaders in living better.